when we think about what Salesforce is in the business of, and really all the other clouds too, it's all about digital transformation, which is the very act of taking all of this technology and trying to apply it to all other aspects of the world. Hey, I wasn't thinking about it, and now I'm in the middle of it. I was thinking about it, I'm thinking about how to go faster.
Yeah, it was the
And
pandemic was like a boulder. Like it just accelerated all of the things
that's
just
right.
quickly. On this episode of The Claw, I speak with Bryan da Frota. He is the COO of ListEngage, and we're going to talk about the concept of complexity in marketing. Marketing is not just one thing. There's lots and lots of different people and individuals and systems involved. ListEngage specifically focuses on Salesforce and how Salesforce can work effectively so that you can engage your customers in a meaningful way. So tune in as we talk about how to get the most out of your Salesforce investments. Welcome to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger Partners. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I am joined today by Bryan da Frota. He is the COO of ListEngage. So, Bryan, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Happy to be here, Eric.
So, tell me a little bit about ListEngage. What does ListEngage do?
You know, Eric, ListEngage is smack dab in the middle of the digital marketing space. We implement and operate Salesforce Marketing Cloud for a lot of the Fortune 500, the Fortune 100, and a lot of medium-sized businesses as well. Now, ListEngage specializes in Marketing Cloud, but I like to say we're kind of Marketing Cloud first with like cross-cloud capability. And
Marketing Cloud burst with cross-cloud capability.
That's right. And the thing that I have to remember is that you get that because we've been working together so long, but a lot of other people don't necessarily get that. And even people in marketing and people in digital marketing don't necessarily put all those things together. And the reason why is that our job is getting way too complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The thing that struck me when I got into this ecosystem, which was about 4 years ago, was that it is really hard to navigate all the thousands of things to do. And they talk about it as like the complexity of the MarTech stack, but my goodness, there is just, I don't know how any executive like makes decisions and really knows how to drive their organization forward without assistance and help because there's just so many options.
Yeah, I mean it is. So I was giving a presentation at a school a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of the students that came up to me said, "Yeah, I came to school for marketing." I didn't realize there were so many different pieces of marketing. They thought that marketing was like this one thing, and it's not, right? And when you even look at the individual ecosystems, because you have they're kind of like religions, right? You've got your Salesforce and you've got we won't talk about any others because we're talking to you, but you got the Salesforce religion, right? And so inside
That's
that,
right. I don't actually recognize other
yeah,
religions.
there's no others. There's just the one. So if we
stay in cloud.
stay in cloud, we should like trademark that. That's awesome. So if you think about the Salesforce ecosystems, so tell me a little bit about what that is. Like, is it, some people may just think about Salesforce as a CRM that their Salesforce team uses to, or their sales team uses to keep up with the contacts that they're going after.
So I think that you have to almost take a step back before I could answer that question and really think in broad brushstrokes as to what the heck is going on, right? And when you think about this, the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, likes to talk about like the fourth industrial revolution or whatever, and that's a neat idea, but it can really be very succinctly seen as, we started out, in horse-drawn carriages. We then got, we went through this like industrial revolution where we got mechanisms and engines and things like that. And then we had the advent of electricity and electrical systems, and then computers. And if you think about where we are right now, we are figuring out what to do with computers, how we apply technology, and how it infiltrates into everything.
Yeah.
And the consultants at Accenture and Deloitte, they'll say, hey, that's digital transformation. And when we think about what Salesforce is in the business of, and really all the other clouds too, it's all about digital transformation, which is the very act of taking all of this technology and trying to apply it to all other aspects of the world.
Yeah.
And so, couple interesting data points. Did you read the case study that came out? I think it was by Deloitte in October of last year.
No, I did not.
Okay, so it was talking about the effect of the pandemic on digital transformation, and their point was that digital transformation increased by about 5x
Oh yeah. Yeah.
as a result of the pandemic. So, hey, I wasn't thinking about it, now I'm in the middle of it. I was thinking about it, I'm thinking about how to go faster.
Yeah, it was the
And
pandemic was like a boulder. Like it just accelerated all of the things just
that's right, it
quickly. Yeah. Something that
pushed
would have
all
happened
these
in
things.
10 years took in, 2 years, or 20 years would have taken 2 years now. So yeah.
And ultimately, people, as digital transformation affects marketing and affects the work that you and I do, um, at its most fundamental level, right? Like marketing is about connecting and engaging with customers and connecting them to brands and to products and to, whatever. And Salesforce, through its CRM, Sales Cloud, through Marketing Cloud, through Service Cloud and Commerce Cloud, it is all about creating like this connected digital experience.
Hmm.
And that's what driven Salesforce's growth. That's driven our growth. That's what's happening in the market right now, and that's what we're all trying to figure out, not in terms of what to do, but what it necessarily means and how we use it in our businesses to do more, to do better. Um, so when you ask the question, well, what does Salesforce do? Well, at its most fundamental level, right? It's a database that in the cloud that is used for a variety of sales, marketing, service, transactional purposes. But at the end of the day, what Salesforce does is attempt to deliver connected customer experiences.
Mm. Yeah. And you talk about this kind of fourth thing. There's a book called Fourth Turning. Have you ever heard of the book Fourth Turning?
No, I haven't.
So that's a book to read. So it was written in the 90s, and it talks
Could
about
you give me the name again? I'm going to write it down. This is
fourth.
paper.
Wow, what is that? You just
Yeah.
may have given your age away a little bit, but that's okay. So fourth turning. So just like the number, I think it's actually
Got it.
spelled fourth turning. And so it talks about how everything runs in seasons. So you have a spring, you have a summer, you have a fall, and you have a winter, right? And that's the world is just built to do that. And so they
Yep.
predicted in the 90s a fourth turning. And so, which is what they were saying was going to be a return to village. And they talk about like the Industrial Revolution and how that was like that if the, horse and buggy was the first, the second was industrial, then we moved into like information. And there's also like this other conversation about being in the age of meaning and things like that. But it is this like connectedness, where people want to be connected individually to a brand, you have to do that at a mass level. So it's this weird thing because you're doing it using kind of technology in very impersonal ways of making
Yep.
people feel more understood and more connected. And that's the space that you guys live in on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so on your like when you work, because you said you work primarily kind of Fortune 500s and things, like what are some of the challenges either that you're seeing them run into as they try to get through this digital transformation, or maybe even at your own level of, just sourcing those projects nowadays?
Yeah, so I mean, the number one challenge that everyone's facing, whether they admit it or not, is complexity.
Mm,
There's too much stuff, too many options, and how do you take all of these options, create a framework to drive a decision, to embark upon a strategy and a direction, and understand what's going to keep you focused and what's a distraction. That is the number one problem I think that faces every CMO, marketing manager, digital marketing manager, random person trying to run their business, that's the problem. Um, and then problem two, there's a bunch of other stuff, right? Can we talk about the Great Resignation?
Right. Well, there's
Right.
also
So
the I had a friend who was on the earlier, and there were 30 million boomers left the job market, and only 10 million of the next generation came in. So there's a 20 million person gap that just exists
yeah,
from now on.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Have you ever seen any of the charts from, I think it's like, whatever, the Department of Statistics, Federal Department of Statistics, where they're showing the, each generation and their effect on the entering the workforce? It's crazy because boomers, boom, and then it goes back down for Gen X, then millennials, and then, it's starting to
Mm.
get better, but it's going to be a while till we recover from all those boomers retiring.
Yeah. At one point they called, like, I think they called, boomers were like the sandwich generation, but I really think Gen X is the sandwich generation. It's like, because the sandwich always has less in the middle than it does on the bread on both sides, right? And we're kind of like figuring out how to keep all of it held together. So it's an interesting, specifically, so in that COO role, so like, how did you end up in a COO role? What is your background to, you know,
Well, I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express,
did you? Is that
and
how it
I
works?
that's it. That's where you do. You go to Holiday Inn Express, you stay there, you come out, boom, you're COO.
You're a
Now,
COO. Okay.
so um, for me, it's a kind of a long path because I got my start in startups. I
Yeah.
did a venture-backed startup back when I was a wee lad out of out of college. Built that and grew that for 15 years, and after that, I got into private equity. Then, after being in private equity, I kind of drove the decision and the thesis to kind of invest in a specific space, and this space of digital transformation was a place that we wanted to get involved. And I found ListEngage. We acquired ListEngage, and I stepped in as a full-time role to operate the business. And I'm fortunate to partner with the founder, Altaf Sheikh, who's a fantastic guy. I don't know if he's been on your show yet, but he definitely should be. But so I am here in the business. Again, not a marketer by training. Really more of a operations sales background. But I've had to learn a lot about marketing as I've jumped into the ecosystem.
Well, and you talked about complexity, because honestly, at the end of the day, I'm an operations person at heart too. I just happen to put the stuff on top of it, right? So you and I don't think we've ever talked about it, but I come from that kind of startup space, right hand guy to CEO who got money but didn't know how to build a business around it. So they were really good at raising the money, but then they're like, oh wait, we got to go hire people and actually make this work. And
Yeah,
operations is about simplifying complexity. Like you can't operate a thing unless you simplify it, right? That's
that's right.
just bringing complexity down to its most discrete bite-sized chunks, getting rid of anything that's inefficient, like really thinking about it that way. So the startup is it one that we would know? Is it famous? Or
No, no, it wasn't.
because the 15 years in a startup is that's a pretty good run.
Yeah, it probably was too long.
Oh, okay.
So the startup was in the drone space,
Oh,
and this is
fine.
back before drones were drones, and they were unmanned air vehicles. And there's something interesting about that whole experience, and that was that at the end of the day, we got into it because we thought flying robots were cool. But really, what was cool was the fact that we were collecting data,
Mm-hmm.
and if you could figure out what to do with the data, you could unlock a lot of value. We were very defense focused. The startup was never able to really pivot commercial, which led to its ultimate demise. But when you think about that data and some of the value that we were seeing, just if you could use that properly, that was part of driving my interest actually into this whole area.
Yeah.
Because in my view, when you're working with Marketing Cloud, it's like you get the benefit of trying to unlock the value of data without the mess of dealing with robots. Robots are very temperamental.
And they could
Like you
turn
do
on
not
you.
understand.
They can turn on you, right?
They can.
Yeah.
They can do the darndest things, and they're very finicky. Sometimes they don't like to work.
Yeah.
Um, you know, they can be quite vocal protesters. Just I've
The
had my fill.
and we're about to go to commercial break, but it reminds me of, so Netflix has just brought Knight Rider, like the entire series of Knight Rider is on Netflix. I am just in
Yeah.
heaven. Like we started watching that. I'm like, Knight Rider, it's Kit. It's like, and how did they convince that guy from St. Elsewhere to be the voice? I have no idea. It's just a crazy, like terrible, like maybe his career. Do you think your career either made it when you become the voice of a car, or have you, hit rock bottom? I'm not quite sure. We can answer that question when we get back. So we're gonna go to a commercial break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about how do you look at complexity and simplify it. So like if that's the problem, if the world is complex, how do we think about making it more simple? What are some steps we can take to break it down? So I'm talking today with Bryan da Frota. He is the COO of ListEngage. You're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Thanks so much for watching the Claw podcast. We'll be back after this short break.
When I first met the Unicorn Marketing Agency, everything was rainbows and, well, unicorns. They promised overnight marketing results for my business, leads my sales team couldn't keep up with. Once I signed up with them, they didn't even hold up any of their promises, even after months. And the only thing they gave me were excuses. After a while, communication with them became spotty and they were hard to get a hold of. Eventually, they stopped responding altogether. Overall, I lost a total of about $23,000 over a 4-month period. And I lost a lot of valuable time and energy.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw, the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I am talking today with Bryan da Frota. He is the COO of ListEngage, and we've been talking about the concept of marketing and marketing being complex. I mean, the world is just complex as we've kind of gone through digital transformation and supply chain issues and all the things that are happening. And as we left to go to the commercial break, Bryan, there's being the COO and looking at things and knowing that you've got to take complexity and make it more simple, make things more simple, and also for your customers, how do you approach just taking a complex thing and breaking it down and making it simple? Because that's a hard thing to do. It's not simple.
It is, but you have to confront complexity with simplicity. And what I mean by that is, why? Why are you doing it? What's the point? What's the purpose? And when you start with that fundamental question of why and what you're trying to accomplish, and then work back from there, for me, I think that's how you simplify the question. And let me provide an example, Eric,
Okay.
so that like you can make sense of what I'm trying to say. Um, why do people want to use email, right? And
Why
generally,
do people want to use email? You know me, I'm a Slack guy, right? Like I'm like, oh, come on, really? Do we have
that's
to?
right,
Yes, but why do people want to use email?
because they want to use it as a tool to drive engagement.
Hmm.
Why do they want to drive engagement?
Because they want people to do something. They want you to do something. They either need you to send something, buy something, whatever that is. There's a purpose behind it.
Yeah,
Or
I mean, I
inform,
don't know if
or
it's quite that
inform.
virtuous. Like, we ultimately want to drive people to be engaged because our, hot-blooded consumer selves know that, engaged people buy more stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So at the end of the day, that's why all these big companies want to drive engagement. So if you think about that, okay, I want to drive engagement. All right, well, how do I go about doing it? What's the best way to drive engagement? Well, email has been established as a pretty good way to do it. We know that when we combine that with other channels, it works even better,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It drives more engagement. And if you think about that just statement, when I add more channels to email, my engagement increases. Or I'm trying to use email to create engagement. It really simplifies the thought process because, okay, well, then that means I can either do something a little more complicated with the email, like an automation or a more complex journey, customer journey, or I can add more channels of data. and use both those things to increase engagement. And so when I think about where I'm at or where a customer is on the digital marketing maturity spectrum, you start there and you start doing one thing, and then you just simply add one more layer onto it, one more layer onto it, and just keep slowly building up from there. And in my view, that's how you create simplicity. And that's how you take this whole morass of 4,000, 7,000, however many things there are in the MarTech stack and say, okay, what do I use?
Yeah.
Well, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Okay, I need to generate engagement, and for whatever reason, I think I'm going to use email to generate engagement. Okay, great.
Wow. I think
You
the
start that way.
latest MarTech is that there's 11,000 MarTech technologies available.
Why can't someone regulate that?
I don't know, but I mean, it reminds me a little bit of like, I use the analogy of that being like Home Depot. You know, you walk into Home Depot and there's lots and lots. I mean, there's lots of stuff, and I need to have somebody at Home Depot tell me, number one, what Home Depot should do when I walk in is they should be like, are you sure you should be here? And then after I'm like, no, I'm certain. I think I can take care of this one. They're like, okay, let me take you to whatever aisle, and then very clearly show you all the parts and pieces. Because if not, I'm going to be back at Home Depot about 17 times to do the simplest thing. So
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. But how does Home Depot reduce complexity? Because you want to talk about complicated,
oh
there's
yeah.
too much crap in there.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there got to be what I think. This is Eric's uneducated and uninformed way of guessing at it, because there's one guy on the one aisle that I'm always feel like I have to go to that
Bob.
doesn't like me. I mean, he just really doesn't, right? Like he sees me coming and he's like, why are you
Yeah.
here again? Like you always ask the same questions, that type of thing. But he's always on that same aisle. So I do think they have specialists, and that's a way to also make this work, right? And this kind of thinking about how you do it, the idea of a generalist who understands the marketing stack, they may know who you need to apply. But beyond that, you've got to have people who really specialize and look at different categories. I mean, that's one of the reasons ListEngage is stayed so closely and cleanly in the Salesforce sort of ecosystem, is to make it all work, right?
Yeah, no, and that's actually an interesting kind of example, and I think I totally agree with it, because if you think about that Home Depot experience, you need somebody that can point you in the right direction, and then you need somebody who can also say, "Oh, well, I can't actually help you in the details of that, but Bob or Bob's best friend Phil can,"
Yeah.
and to bring that person to bear, and to help you kind of along your path and your journey.
I think I must always be in like the fastener and screws and nuts aisle, because it's the same guy. He's like the one that runs the key machine, and he sees me coming and he's just like, yeah, there's that guy again. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's always on that aisle. Like he's
But
always
he's
gonna
not
be there.
running away. He's not running away.
I don't
This
think
is
he
amazing.
can. I think that's the thing. Like it's not,
Oh.
yeah, he's required to answer my
tough.
questions. Yeah. So as companies come to you, so you have one of those that says they want to increase engagement. So you've got a Fortune 500 company. They've decided to invest in Salesforce. They're using, some parts of the cloud. And what are the different clouds within Salesforce? This is a test. I'm going to send it to Althoff if you get it wrong.
Uh-oh.
But,
Oh, yeah. So, oh, man. No, I know. So, everybody knows CRM, which is Sales Cloud.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people know Service Cloud, which is really the CRM's about closing the customer and taking someone from the journey of being a prospect to a customer. Service Cloud is, okay, now they're a customer. How do we have one source of truth, all of their data in one place, and track everything that's going on with that customer so that we can provide them good customer experience? So that's Sales and Service Cloud's one thing. Then you have Marketing Cloud. And Marketing Cloud is all about connecting with email to the customer. Again, having one source of truth about that customer, that central database. And then being able to also take in other data sources, whether it's legacy databases, a data lake that's used to be used, other lists, whatever, and combining those data sources to have a very thoughtful interaction with the customer. There's kind of this phrase that they use when talking about Marketing Cloud, and that it's all about right message in the right channel at the right time. And if Marketing Cloud done right or email done right is doing those three things. So Marketing Cloud, Sales and Service Cloud, you have Commerce Cloud. Commerce Cloud's all about getting the actual transaction, and going from, hey, have you considered buying X, Y, and Z to, well, let me look at that. Oh, I'm looking at that. Oh, there's an opportunity right now to buy. Oh, and here's my coupon code to reward me because Service Cloud is connecting there, telling the system that, I'm a loyal customer, so I get that coupon and I complete the transaction.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But so there's a lot of those kind of interchange. And you guys you start in Marketing Cloud often, and then kind of
That's
move
right.
over
We,
into
we
those
started
others.
Marketing Cloud and then touched the other ones. But the thing about Salesforce, and again, where the complexity comes in, is that you can get as crazy as you want to, right? There are things like Tableau, which you can start taking that data and saying, okay, well, I want to look for relationships and patterns and trends that aren't readily apparent to me.
Yeah.
There are things like Datorama or Interaction Studio, which allow you to just connect in different ways and see different things, um, whether it's connecting to your ad spend or connecting with the way people are, interfacing with your different pieces. There's just so many things that you can layer on top of that. Again, depending on what problem you're solving.
Mm.
And here we're starting, right? I'm trying to use engagement. I want email as my primary tool to drive engagement. So how do I just, very methodically keep layering on the pieces needed to eventually get to whatever this engaged customer level is.
Yeah. And it's very much a flywheel. I like that idea of simplifying it down to what's that one problem you're trying to solve. As you've solved that, then you can start to add, and then you get a flywheel approach on top of
And I
that.
and I love the flywheel concept you just made, Eric, because and I think you'll echo this. If I could deliver one message to anyone watching this, is that marketing's never done.
Yes.
We don't have one marketing campaign and poof, we sit back, relax. It's not one email and all of a sudden we're all off the hook.
Yeah.
Marketing, if it's successful, is this constantly evolving thing. It's almost alive. And our job as marketers, whether on the digital side or on the content side or whatever, is to feed it, help it to grow, push it along.
Yeah.
And it's never done.
Now, Cynthia Hayes, who's our managing partner here, she talks about the fact that it's not a destination, it's a dance. And if you stop thinking about it as a destination, and they're very destination oriented people, like I want to get there, I'm going to be done when I get there. A dance, you're constantly moving, you're maneuvering, you're kind of interacting with your partner, figuring out where they are, So putting it in that analogy, it assists, because a lot of us, I am a destination person, but I'm not a check the thing off the box person. And a lot of, you've got, the world is made up of all those people, and the people who need to check off a box, marketing can drive them a little crazy, because it's like, well, we checked off the box, but did we? We may need to go look at something more. Or, it's all about testing and seeing what's working and what's not. So it means that there's always work.
Absolutely. But also too, though, there's a couple other kind of trends that kind of tie to this flywheel thing, right? So first of all, if it's not a destination, if it is a dance, then and everything is complicated, then what we need to do is sometimes try to not think that we need some overarching ultimate grand theory or plan or whatever to create a successful marketing program. What we need to do is get out there and try things.
Oh, yeah.
And iterate and fail faster, because it's something may work today and it won't work tomorrow, and it may start working again, and you're not going to know unless you really mastered just being in that flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a huge struggle that we run into with companies, because they're used to your financials, you close your books at the same time every month, you have a P&L, there's a balance sheet, there's this kind of formulated way of doing it. And marketing, it does change. It's, oh, no, today's this thing. Nope, go do this thing. Now let's look at this thing. And long tail, that's the other thing that we try to get clients to really understand is you may put out a piece of content today and it serves you 6 months from now. So it's not about it serving you right now. I don't necessarily care. I do want to get engagement. I do want people to see a thing, but it's what did it do over time? What did that thing look like over time? So you're making this kind of long-term bond investment in some of your marketing pieces. So, okay, well, cool. So I think what we did today is we said that the world is only getting more complicated. It's not going to be easier. Marketing is hard, and you should hire us, right? Isn't that what we said? I think that's what we said.
Ultimately, yeah, that's right.
We gave a lot of answers that were like, there is real no true one answer. And you need a guide along the way, but it's just true. And if you have a guide, you will make fewer mistakes. You will make fewer mistakes.
We gave the ultimate consulting answer.
That's right. It depends. But I mean, honestly, in the marketing space, because we see a lot of companies investing in Salesforce and they bought like the whole enchilada or some part of it, and they're just not using it as effectively as they could if they had someone assisting them. If someone was assisting them, they'd be getting greater.
That's right. And this is just one other, point that we have to drive home, right? Because of the complexity, this idea that you're going to find one person that does everything, it's just not there, right? When we go do an engagement, the last count we have, there are actually 12 unique roles and skill sets. Yep. And under those role skill sets, there's really like a library of different things that they're capable of doing. And so to make any marketing engagement successful, whether it's Liger going into a company, whether it's ListEngage, like they're bringing to bear all of this capability now to drive objectives. And where a lot of companies and individuals, I think, get stopped up is they think, oh, I'm going to hire a marketing person.
Right.
And I'm going to give them Salesforce to manage. I'm going to give them all the creative to develop. It's just too much. And the reason why, not because that one person isn't a fantastic person. We love them. But it's because everything has gotten so detailed and so specialized that there's just too much to know.
Yeah, knowing that skill set, I talk about that even in writing. There's like 6 different types of writers. So writers who do short form, long form copy, like it's not the same skill set. I'm a writer, but there's only 2 forms of writing that I feel like I do very well. And if you want the other kinds, you need a different type of writer. It's just not the kind of thing I do. So yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thanks so much for taking time to talk with me today. I appreciate your time. It's been great. You've been listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzcott, Chief Strategist at Liger Partners. I've been talking today with Bryan da Frota. He's the COO of ListEngage, and we'll put all the information on his company so you can reach out to them and find out what they do along the path of digital transformation within Salesforce. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Claw Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, rate and review this podcast. And if you or someone you know wants to make an appearance on this show, email us at yourbestie@ligerpartners.com.